For this week's review vlog, I'm going to be talking about the film Pillow Talk. And the film Pillow Talk is a 1959 film that was directed by Michael Gordon, and it starred Rock Hudson, Doris Day, and Tony Randall. Now, the plot of the film is about Doris Day, who plays Jan, and Rock Hudson, who plays Brad, and Tony Randall, who plays Jonathan. Now, Jan and Brad share a party line on a telephone, and since this was based in the 50s, they have, those really old telephone lines that none of us really know how they work anymore. So Brad and Jan share a telephone line, and funny, odd note when she doesn't like him because he uses all the phone time, and he doesn't like her because she interrupts his moments that he's having with these women. And basically, Brad tries to prove to Jan that all men are the same, and she chooses not to believe that, and she wants to, find that one true love that most girls want. And Brad finally sees Jan in person and realizes, that she's very stunning and she's pretty, and he decides to put on a fake facade, and he does a fake accent, a really bad southern accent, if I have to say, and he basically starts to woo her and talk to her, and they soon start dating, and she falls in love with him. And at the end, Brad ends up falling in love with Jan, but Jan, of course, finds out that he was lying and finds out who he is. The one character that I do like is Jonathan, who is played by Tony Randall, but he basically is in love with Jan and wants Jan to marry him, but you then soon find out in the beginning that he's friends with Brad and knows that Brad is, a womanizer, and kind of ties into, how funny this film really was, and I did not expect it to be as funny, and because most of the films that we've seen, they're funny, but the humor seems to kind of, stay in that time. This seemed to just be very timeless, and, it was humor that you still see in, rom-coms today, and I just feel like this was one of the better rom-coms that I've seen than the last few I've seen that have come out in the past few years, and it's very odd humor, but it's good humor, and it's just very, weird and odd at some points. The maid, Jan has this maid, and she goes out drinking every night and just shows up to Jan's apartment in the morning hungover, and it's just normal, and then, Brad tries to talk to this maid, and she kind of helps him out, but it's kind of weird, her whole part in the film, but I just thought the humor in this movie was very well done, and I just think that, most people probably wouldn't think that a movie in the 50s would be that funny, but it is good humor, I have to. Something I really liked about this film was the way it was cut and the editing. For example, when they would be talking on the phone, it was just very, whenever they would pick up the phone, the other person on the other line, the screen would slide in, or when they would hang up, the screen would slide out for the person that was on the other end of the phone. I just thought it was very interesting, but it was also very, clearly it's in the 50s, so for us, it's very, old school and vintage, but I thought it was very well done and smooth in the sense where I just really liked that, because as the phone would be, they'd be putting the phone down, the screen with the person on the other side would leave the screen. It was just very smooth. It wasn't, choppy with the editing when they would be on the phone, which I thought it was great, and especially in the beginning when they first start out showing the fact that they have this party line that they share, that it was, when it would be, 3 people on the line, it would have, little small triangles, and, the 2 people would be on the line, and if the third person came in, they'd be in the middle. It was just very interesting. But it added to, the comedic part of the film. And the one part that I actually didn't really like, I guess, was the fact that their romance was very rushed at the end, I felt. And because it was kind of, you could tell that Brad was falling in love with her, but you didn't really get to see him realize, I guess. You kind of do when he comes back and he says to his friend Jonathan, I couldn't write any songs because I felt guilty. And then his friend Jonathan is just like, well, you're in love with her. And he's kind of just like, yeah, I guess I am. So, I don't know, that's kind of, and then he goes and finds her, and then they fight because she turned his apartment into this hideous thing, and he said that he dropped all of his side women and was going to marry her, and then she kind of just forgets about what he did and is just, they just and kiss, and then they're like, we're gonna get married. So that part was kind of rushed. I would like to see him maybe like the part where he realizes, and kind of when you see him change. I guess you kind of see that when he breaks up with all of his girls, but I don't know. I just feel like that part was kind of rushed. Overall, I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was hysterical, and I really liked all of the editing. I loved the character chemistry that was between Rock Hudson and Doris Day. I thought it was fantastic. There were some scenes that I swear that it was just, I mean, either it was improv or they were just so comfortable with filming with each other that I think the laughter was genuine, which I thought was, I mean, that was great. I love when I see that, or if I learn that something's improv, it makes it even better. And I just find it like there were some scenes like in the very end when he kind of was carrying her. I just thought, first of all, that part was one of my favorite parts, when he carried her all the way across New York City, because that is, I mean, that's dedication, but it was just fantastic. And he brings her into the apartment and kind of walks her under those like hanging things that they had to go through, and it kind of just like went over her face, which I feel like in a movie today they would never leave that in the movie. There were just scenes that I think it was just like unedited scenes, and I thought it was fantastic because it just adds like an even more realistic feel to the movie. I just thought it was really, really good, and it was a little more raunchy than all the other scenes that we had watched, which makes sense for all of the the Hays Code and all that stuff that we had to learn about. And this one is a little bit more on like the dirtier side, I guess. But it was just very well done with the humor and everything put together. It was really good, and overall, I really enjoyed it.